Constance is a new Metroidvania that doesn't do many new things. Yes, its art would not look too out of place in a Hollow Knight game. It has the same area lockdown combat scenarios, side quest about finding lost cousins of a merchant and asking them to return to him, which increases the variety of the merchant's inventory, notch-like customizable upgrades, people tied down with threads, the main character turning into a cocoon-like thing upon death, etc. But unlike Hollow Knight, it is not a Souls-like, so if you're tired of 2D Souls-likes, you can easily give this game a try. It is not a masterpiece though. Far from it. And let me tell you why.
Tell me why!
In Constance, you play as Constance, an artist who somehow gets transported from the real world into this magical world and now must find her way back. In her quest, she quickly learns that the only transportation, this train, which can take her back, is tied down by these threads that can be cut down by getting 3 tears from parts of the world, and so begins her journey.
Heard that line before.
The story premise is as standard as any Metroidvania, and I quickly stopped caring for it. What I care most about Metroidvanias are combat, exploration, unlockable abilities, and how these 3 synergize. Firstly, combat is fine. You use a paintbrush as a weapon and it feels nice to wield, and it has a punchy sound effect that sells the strikes well. Not only combat, controlling the player character just feels great. I would say it is the best part of the game and it's what kept me going. However, there is no real weapon or strength upgrade. You can only slightly increase your strength by putting on one of these inspirations, which work exactly like notches in Hollow Knight. You can upgrade every inspiration once, and I was able to upgrade the weapon strength increasing inspiration very early on, so for the rest of the game my weapon felt blunt and there was no sense of progress in combat. The combat control does feel nice though, it's just that it peaks very early in the game and doesn't evolve, which I think is a missed opportunity.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Upon getting killed, every enemy drops these floating orbs which you'll have to strike to break and get these things called glimmers. You use these to buy items from a merchant. Because I went in without any prior knowledge about the game apart from knowing that it's a Metroidvania, these glimmers made me think that if I die, I'm gonna drop them like in Souls-likes. Especially when I reached one of these checkpoints without dying and the checkpoint acted exactly like the benches in Hollow Knight, I was pretty sure. Thankfully, it turned out that it's not a Souls-like, meaning when you die, you don't lose anything but time. But because you don't lose these glimmers or these light stones that are used to upgrade your inspirations, they quickly accumulate to a point that I was able to buy out the whole inventory of the merchant and upgrade every inspiration pretty early, and therefore lost any incentive to collect these resources.
They don't mean anything to me.
If you die, you can choose to get revived in the last checkpoint you rested at or the room where you died. Reviving in the same room saves you some travel time, but in exchange empowers the enemies and makes them slightly harder to kill, and also disables iframing through them. I think it's a good middle ground between making death totally meaningless since you don't lose any resources upon dying, and making it too frustrating by forcing you to travel from the checkpoint every time. Similar to Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, you can take pictures at any part of the map to remind yourself to come back later. While in Prince of Persia it was a great feature due to the sheer size of the map and the large number of abilities you gradually unlock to aid your exploration, here this feature, while helpful, doesn't really do much. Because it's a short and small scale Metroidvania, there aren't many unlockable abilities and therefore there isn't a significant amount of backtracking involved, so this snapshotting feature doesn't feel as important as it did in The Lost Crown. Speaking of the map, I found it to be extremely annoying. There is a full screen map you can access in the pause menu, but you can also access it in-game by pressing the right stick, which is great. But the map itself is so vague and unhelpful in navigation that I had to spend at least 2 hours of my total playtime just going in circles.
Just tell me where the fuck you want us to go.
The level design is also not that interesting. Aesthetically, they're great, the hand-drawn art style of the game is amazing, the character animation is nice, there are some secret areas and some fun short platforming sections within the levels that usually reward you with health or paint upgrades, which is great, but no part of the level design particularly wowed me.
It's not exciting.
I finished the game at 73% completion. I would say I was pretty thorough with my exploration, and I would have loved to explore more had the map not been so bad. Although I didn't complete every side quest due to them not being very interesting. I unlocked every ability but one, yet it seems like I missed a huge number of inspirations. As you can see, although this inspiration system is supposed to force you to make decisions regarding which ones to use due to the limited slots to activate them at a time, I didn't have to go through any such struggle because I found more erasers to increase slots than the inspirations to put them on. Again, a recurring problem, and I'd argue the primary issue with the game, is these economic imbalances. Also, I don't understand this trend in recent Metroidvanias of having this reluctance to give you double jump early on or making them one of the core abilities in some cases. Blasphemous 1 didn't even have the double jump. In Hollow Knight you get it very late, same in Nine Souls. In Silksong it's optional and you can finish the game without ever getting it. Likewise in this game it's hidden in a secret area and not mandatory to complete the game. It almost feels like because double jump has been a staple in Metroidvanias and platformers since forever, these modern developers are kind of ashamed to include it as a feature. I don't get it. Double jump and air dash instantly makes traversal super smooth, fun, and more appealing. Why would you not give us this ability early on?
Why not, you stupid bastard?
While the common enemies are just fine and there is a good amount of visual variety in them, the boss fights were primarily the most enjoyable combat scenarios for me. Yes, most of them follow a very simple, predictable and repeating attack pattern, but still fighting them was generally quite fun. A slightly annoying pattern some of the bosses have is that at first they kind of dance around, during which you practically can't hit them. And only once they're done, a short opportunity arises during which you can lay down a few quick hits before they start dancing around again. This makes these boss fights too predictable, and when you die, the frustration comes more from the fact that you have to waste time watching them dance around all over again than the actual difficulty of the fight. Unfortunately, the worst two bosses reside in this circus area and you have to fight each of them twice, which, I'm not gonna lie, brought down my enjoyment of the game drastically. These two bosses take the time-wasting aspect of the boss fights to their extreme, and when I realized that I have to fight them twice, I was almost on the verge of noping out of the game.
No.
This boss, for example, at one point goes and sits on top of the stage, which you have to reach by pogoing on these falling balloons. But sometimes these balloons fall in such a weird interval that it becomes extremely frustrating to climb them. Again, more than the difficulty, it's these time-wasting features that frustrated me about these boss fights. But overall, the actual difficulty of the boss fights is more on the easier side, and most of them were fun to fight.
Stop.
So that's a lot of criticism. Now let me talk about the things I liked about the game. While there aren't many puzzles, I enjoyed whatever there was on offer, especially puzzles involving these boxes which you can get inside of and then move them were a lot of fun. There are these sections of the game which usually take place after you've defeated a boss, in which you go into a flashback of Constance's real-life version and play short mini-games. I thought these were pretty novel and well executed, especially this section that very faithfully depicts a designer's life and the overwhelming stress of dealing with clients as a creative person. I really liked the game's artwork and smooth animation, especially in cutscenes, although the Hollow Knight inspiration in the background design and music was a bit too noticeable at times. It took me around 14 hours to see the game's ending, but like I said, I had to spend a good chunk of time just going around in circles, so I'd say a better player than me should be able to complete it under 10 hours. It's currently selling at $20 on Steam, and unless you compare it with the similarly priced Silksong, which I don't think would be a fair comparison, I think the price is just okay, although $15 would probably be more suited. While the game doesn't break any new ground and doesn't offer anything that you haven't seen before, still I think it's a somewhat solid experience, albeit a bit on the shorter side. So if you're starving to play a new Metroidvania because you played everything else that came before, give Constance a try, I guess.